All right, cool. So let's talk about some creative financing up in this business. Slideshow beginning. Can you guys see my screen or no?
I can't.
Oh, just kidding.
Yeah,
There
no,
we go. Now you guys can see it.
Yep.
Well, if I put this on my YouTube, I don't have a mentorship. None of these people are buying courses. I don't have a course to sell. These are just people I work with. And we're talking creative finance. Teach you guys how to get some free and creative ways to get into some properties. All right. So the first one is seller finance, just because it's like the easiest one to, kind of explain and wrap your head around. But basically, the owner owns the house free and clear, right? So they've paid off the mortgage. They're anywhere out there. And usually they have a price in their head and they're stuck on it, or they're just tired of getting lowballed and they just want to sell their house, but nobody's willing to pay what they have to offer, basically. So what you're doing with a seller finance is you're creating the owner into the bank. And I feel like when I say that, it probably confuses people, but basically, instead of you going and getting a mortgage to buy the house, you're essentially just making payments to the seller, and the seller is basically going to give you a mortgage so that you can buy the property. All right. Things to think about whenever we're doing this is money up front. Like a lot of times people aren't just going to sell you their house for free and then you start making payments. I mean, that's the dream. That'd be perfect, right? But usually they want some money up front. So they're basically people who have, they own it free and clear, and they basically just want to sell their house, but they want a little bit of money up front. So they can, sometimes they need the money for something. Sometimes, they just don't want to do it for free. Our company policy is offer them $5K. For all these creative deals, try and offer them $5,000 up front and see if they'll take it. That's going to be like our company policy. We're probably not going to get that. But the whole thing is like, you want to get it as cheap as you possibly can. But when you're negotiating these things, you don't even have to mention money up front. If nobody brings it up, then you don't have to do it, but it's just part of it. Okay. So money up front. How much is the monthly payment going to be? The main thing when you are doing this kind of stuff and you're negotiating is you want the monthly payment as low as possible so that you can rent it out and have that property cash flow. Okay. So whenever you're cash flowing a property, whatever money you make on top of all the bills and everything for the house, that's your take home. You usually want it to be at least over $300 to $400 a minimum, because you're going to have to pay for the repairs on the house. You're going to have to pay taxes on the house. You're going to have to pay, if something goes wrong or something breaks on the house. So you want to keep that cash flow high and your monthly payments as low as possible. And the monthly payments are basically going to be a breakdown of how much the loan is, broken down by how long the loan is and what the interest on the loan is going to be, if any. Okay, so for when you're negotiating, you got to negotiate for the lowest amount up front, the lowest monthly payment, the longest length of the loan. So you want that loan to be 30 years, and have it nothing happen, and then the lowest amount of interest. I think I said interstate there, but whatever. And you don't have to bring up the interest. Most of the people that me and Terry talk to about seller financing, though, they're like tired landlords. So they know the lingo, they know what's up. They want to get their money. But nobody's willing to pay what they want. And they're usually used to that mailbox money. That's kind of how you pitch it. You're like, hey, would you like some more mailbox money? Would you like some money coming in every month? Basically consistently. And if you screw up the seller finance or go into mortgage, you'll usually have in the contract, you'll have to pay a fee and they can get the house back from you. But I mean, technically you will own the house, and I think they have to get the house back from you through pre-foreclosure, but it's still possible. So, and then a balloon payment is basically, let's say you guys agree to that the monthly payments is going to be the length of the loan up to 30 years, right? But the seller is an old man. He's going to die in way before 30 years. So he says, I want all the rest of my money in 10 years. You're going to say, okay, in 10 years, we'll make a balloon payment of whatever's left on the mortgage. So then that means that every month that you pay, you're going to be paying down that principal. But in 10 years, you're going to have to come up with a chunk of change to pay off the rest of that property. And it's just another negotiating tactic. Obviously, you don't need it, but if people are saying, oh, $300 a month for, such and such a long amount of time, that's not a lot of money. I'm going to be dead by then. Like, what, I want the money now. Then you can offer them that balloon payment, and you can basically pay down the lump sum that you would buy at the beginning. Okay. And then ideal again is $5,000 up front, low monthly payments, like as low as possible, no interest, no balloon, super long loan. That's like the goal. That's the dream of every seller finance property. And what blew my mind from going to like these creative conferences and talking to all these creative finance people is if they want some sort of money, you can negotiate with them to have the money not necessarily at closing. Okay. So you can get real creative with this stuff and say, okay, how about we agree to this amount for your house, this monthly payment, this length of the loan, and then 60 days into the property, I'll pay you $10,000. So you can literally get a free house that way. You might have to pay, you can, like I said, you can negotiate for no money, but you could say, all right, in 2 months though, I'll give you 10K. And what you can then do is you find a tenant to rent there, and you could do like a rent to own situation with the tenant. And you can ask that if they want to rent to own, they have to put down a $10,000 deposit to get into this property. And that's how you can literally cash flow off these properties and make crazy amount of money. But what blew my mind is the fact that there's no set in stone way to do this, guys. Like, you can use your imagination, you can use your creativity. It's whatever you and the seller can agree to. So it can really make some amazing, amazing things happen. This is how you can get free houses. This is how you can get, your dream house for a good deal, or properties to fix and flip. You could get a seller finance property in your name, and then you could just fix it up and sell it, or you could just sell it as is for more than what you agreed on the seller finance. And technically you own it, as long as they get paid, like nobody really cares. So super powerful stuff. Anybody have any questions about seller finance? Anybody? I mean, and the way that you can pitch this is like terms, basically. So it's like, I would like to buy your house on terms. And like when you go into Batchleads or PropStream, you're going to see if they have a mortgage or if they own it free and clear, right? And if they're stuck on a price, what you say is, okay, well, I could probably pay that price, but it would have to be on terms, and I'd just make payments to you. Is that something you'd be interested in? And they're, they could say yes. They could say, as long as I get that number and, I don't have to deal with the property anymore, I'm all right with it. And then you can say, okay, I'm going to take care of the house. I'm going to pay you monthly. I'm going to, basically fix it up, whatever you got to say. And you're going to get mailbox money every month, and you're not going to have to worry about, what is it? Tenants and toilets, I think, right? Is that what they say? And that's a lot of people will want that. They'll get their money. They made their investment. They're ready for something else. And you get a house. It's super, super cool. You have anything else to add, Terry, or any other things?
I was going to say is some things you guys can look out for, like when to bring this up. Like if somebody says, everybody keeps calling me and they keep giving me these lowball offers, or they keep trying to get me here, but I want to be here. It's a way for you to come in and say, okay, well, if I came here, is there anything else that would stop you from moving forward? You know what I mean? And then once they say yes, you can kind of be like, okay, I can come here, but we got to do it this way, or whatever, however you get into the creative financing deal. Somewhere else you can look at it. Someone says, I wanted to rent it out, but I didn't have the time or something like that. Another way, hey, this is a way you can get your passive income without doing anything. So those are just like two. I probably had another one, but like that, the way you can introduce creative financing, because like I was telling Jacob, your conversation should kind of lead you into a deal already, because like Robert's saying, this is kind of, you can kind of make it up as you go along. So you really just is going to customize this for your seller, to be honest, and like when you talk about money up front, it's either they know what's going on and they want money up front, or they kind of know what's going on, they like the deal, and they're good. In that way, the money up front will probably be an incentive to do it. You know what I mean? But like with other sellers, they'll know about it, and so then you'll negotiate it down as to where it'll be an incentive for somebody else. So
yeah, fuck yeah.
Look at it too.
I would love some more seller finance deals. I guess we could call that guy in Tennessee, huh?
Yeah.
All right. So then now we're going to talk about subject 2. which is basically you are going to be the owner of the house subject to the mortgage, meaning you have to pay the mortgage. So seller has a mortgage, but wants to sell and doesn't need a lot of money. That's one great scenario. A lot of people, like, especially recently, they bought like a crazy overpriced house somewhere, and they want to sell it, but the value of the property has gone down and the mortgage is more than what the house is worth, right? So then what you can do is you can basically step in and say, look, I will take over your mortgage payments if you will sell me the house. And like the mortgage will stay, but I'll become the owner of the house and you're not going to have to worry about this mortgage anymore. Your credit's going to be good. Your credit's going to be fine. You're going to be in good hands, and we're going to make sure that we make the payments because we're a business and we're serious. You know, like that's pretty much how these things go down. Or people are in pre-foreclosure, right? They have a mortgage and they stopped paying it a long time ago, and they're just going to basically lose the house. If they can't figure out, they're going to lose the house. Their credit's going to go to shit. And they're going to be, SOL. Whereas we could step in there and say, look, we'll get your mortgage back in good standing. You sell us the house, and we'll put a little bit of money in your pocket or something like that. That's kind of how I usually say it. So these are great for pre-foreclosures, people that, inherited properties that maybe people passed away and then they can't pay the mortgage anymore. There's tons of different options. If they're upside down in their mortgage, though, subject to is how we can save these people from losing their house and losing everything and getting evicted. So it's real powerful. We can go out there and really help people that are struggling with mortgages. I mean, if you've ever been behind on payments, like had like a car about to be repoed or a house or whatever, like it gets pretty gnarly. So we can really help people by teaching them this. Basically how it works is you become the owner of the house subject to the lien mortgage, meaning you will own it, but you will be responsible for that mortgage. And if for some reason you stop paying the mortgage or whatever, the owner can get the house back and take it back over. I think they might have to go through pre-foreclosure as well, but I'm not 100% sure. So some of the things that you need to know when you're doing these things is you need to know how much is owed on the mortgage. And it's always a pain in the ass. You can't trust what the seller says. You can usually they'll be getting like statements in the mail, but even when they get these statements in the mail, like the most recent one is always different, so these mortgage companies are like, they're like criminals. It's insane. They basically will loan you a bunch of money, and then if you don't make your payments, they'll just keep racking up your bill. Basically every single month they will add money that you owe to them onto the bill. They will add years onto your mortgage. So if people don't pay their mortgage, it's like serious shit. So, but you need to know how much is owed on the mortgage when you're getting into the stuff for that, so that when you fill out the contract and you go to close, you know what you're getting into. You should know the length of the mortgage. You should know the mortgage company, how much you pay on taxes every year. You're going to have to get insurance because most mortgages require insurance. And if there's a gap in the insurance, they can fine you for that. You need to know the interest on the mortgage loan and the HOA, which is just like if there's any random fees for living in the neighborhood that you don't know. Sometimes you can buy a house subject to, and then there'll be like, $3,000 in HOA fees that you just didn't even know about and stuff like that. So you must pay the mortgage, but if the property will rent or Airbnb for more than the mortgage, then the property will cash flow. Rule of thumb would be more than $400 a month. So that's what a lot of these people are looking for. They're looking for these cash flow properties. So they'll get a property subject to, put like $10,000 down with the seller, get them out of there. And then they'll basically find a tenant to rent it out, for as much money as they possibly can, more than the mortgage payment. And that's how real estate people make tons of money doing subject to. And that's why it's such a cool way to attain properties. Okay. If they need money at closing, shoot for $5,000. Okay. Again, our business, like whole thing for creative financing is offer them $5,000. If they don't like $5,000, if they need, 50,000, whatever, at least we tried, but shoot for 5K, but typically money at closing is needed for the seller to get another place to live. And I just say that because almost all the subject to deals we find are from pre-foreclosures, and they're just SOL. They're screwed. So if they don't basically get enough money to find an apartment or put another down payment on a house, then they have nowhere to live, and they're usually, special people or whatever. So, but it's not necessary. Sometimes you can just take over people's mortgages and take over their house and not give them any money. That's how you get a free house without getting a credit check, without putting any money down. You negotiating with the seller who's in a situation, and then you just take over that mortgage payment. You get it in good standings. You either live in it or you rent it out or you turn it into an Airbnb or whatever you do. But basically, you do become the owner of the house, but you also get the struggle of having that mortgage. And you want to keep it in good faith because you're a business owner, and you'll have a contract written up that basically says you're going to make the payments and things like that.
Yeah.
You will need to get the mortgages in good standing before you close. I think this is just a good rule of thumb. So like if they're in pre-foreclosure, you got to find out how much they are in arrears, right? If they're like 30,000 in arrears, you can't assign that contract to some buyer without them knowing it. And you can't just like start making the monthly payments without paying it back. Otherwise, the mortgage companies, sure, they'll take your money, but you'll just have a bunch of fees and you'll just kind of end up in a shitty situation. So you need to know how much is in arrears, and you have to pay that because you're going to be responsible for it. You'll need to get insurance on the house because basically you're responsible for the house. So you're going to want insurance. And that's one of those weird gray areas where like, what if something does happen to the house and you have it subject to? Well, you're going to want to have insurance either go to your company or something like that, because what people have done in the past is they'll take a house over subject to, and it'll get like hit by a meteor or something stupid will happen. And then the insurance check will go to the original owner who has the mortgage. And then you, being the owner of the house and the mortgage, are screwed, right? So you need to watch yourself because there's just weird shit like that. I've never had anything happen like that, but I've heard the stories. And there is an off chance that the mortgage company will ask to pay off the mortgage. It's the due on sales clause. Because these mortgage companies, they don't want you to get a mortgage from them and then just sell the house to somebody else. They don't want that. That's not their thing. They're not cool with you doing that. But they're also so big, these big ass mortgage companies like, Wells Fargo and stuff. They don't care. They're not there checking who's in the house. As long as the money's coming in, you're good. And you can actually get insurance to protect yourself from a due on sale clause. And it's like, I think like $40 a month or something, which is like the greatest scam ever. Like I should open up a due on sale clause insurance company because it just sounds like easy money. Any questions about any of that or subject twos? Anybody? They're pretty cool. And it's just so crazy to think like how many, years we've all thought the only way to get a house is to save up your money, fix your credit, and put down like 20%, right? When we really could just be making, 2 hours of phone calls a day, and you'll basically find a subject to house and you can go move into it and start making payments and live in your life. It's crazy.
Noticing subject twos are getting a lot more popular. I see them popping off in all the groups a lot more now. A lot more sub two buyers specifically.
Yeah, they're all just the Pace Morby groupies, and they're not getting any deals because they suck. But I know, and it's like subject to is cool though. It's amazing, and it's a way to pitch, and it's a way to help people. I think in April, the coronavirus like ban or whatever, where you can't kick people out of their house, is going to end. There's going to be a lot of subject to people who haven't been paying their mortgage and are going to get evicted, and people are going to be able to swoop in and just get their mortgages in good standing and subject to that house and get them out of there and stuff. So huge opportunity for all these creative deals, always. And it's just something everybody should know. Like everybody should know this. It should be like taught in school, but they don't want anybody to know. They just want the real estate agents to get their money and the mortgages to rip people off. So it's shenanigans. Yeah. Any other questions or anybody got anything to add?
No, I was just gonna say, like again, like a lot of this stuff is just gonna be like all for a seller, and it's definitely hard to get them down to like 5K up front, because like a lot of these people, like they don't have money to pay, so they might not have money to get into another place.
Right.
So like just saying like, oh, I'll get your first year paid off. So you know what I mean? If you're first, like when you get into your new place or something like that, or wherever you rent out, and also these people, they don't check their mortgage information because if they were, they'd be paying it. So they never really know how much is on there. So like
Right.
never, me and Robert get caught up so many times thinking we know how much is on there. Sometimes we find out, and sometimes we never find out. So
Yeah.
that needs to be like the second thing you do. That's like just as important as getting the contract signed. I'm not gonna lie. It might even be more important.
Right.
You need to know how much is on that mortgage. So that's really your whole deal.
I guess we've never tried to close without like just going off their word. But we've been for a surprise. Like we had a Kissimmee deal in Florida, Kissimmee, Florida, and we were ready to close. And basically the mortgage was like $30,000 more than what he
60.
told us, or $60,000 more than what he told us. And we were just like basically screwed the deal. So no fun. All right. Well, that's subject twos. Now we're going to talk about novation agreements. So this is basically where the owner owns a property and it's like fucked up basically. And they're not willing to just sell for a cash deal or a seller finance or anything. But they want to sell. So basically what you can do, this is where you partner with the seller, right? So this is where you partner with the seller and basically you pay to repair the house and then sell it and you split the profit with the seller. So this is really cool for like after storms, like if a storm comes through, like in Louisiana, you could basically go and you do the labor to fix the house, you repair it all up, and then you sell it together. And whatever you guys can get, like you put it on the market, obviously, or you try and sell it for as much as you humanly can. And then you'll just split the profit with the seller. And in the novation agreement, you can basically set it up where you automatically get the money back for your repair. And you automatically get, like you could say in the agreement, I want my money back for all the repairs I'm going to put in the house. And I want $30,000. And then you get to keep whatever's left. And this is a really cool way to partner with sellers. Obviously they have to be willing to talk to you and make it work. But if you can pitch this and you can figure out how to get them to agree to a novation agreement, you can make a ton of money. And this works for like shitty houses, storm damages, houses, and so on and so on. You do have to be kind of careful because you can put in the contract how much you're going to make, or you could just split it 50-50 more than what the seller wants or whatever. But I mean, if the house doesn't sell, you're basically just fixed a house for free and you're not going to get any money. Or if the house sells for less than what you guys agreed on, you hopefully cover your ass and the seller kind of isn't going to make as much money as they thought. But this is just a really cool way to partner with sellers instead of just like leaving them high and dry. Like we could have done like a novation with some of these like zombie houses, and they own the property. We'll pay to repair it, or we'll do the labor to clean it out or whatever, and then we'll sell it and we'll split the profits. So again, this is a really way to get creative with sellers and not just gouge people for wholesale prices or other weird stuff. So this is a partnership, but you got to have a lot of rapport. You got to kind of trust them. And then you also need to know how to do the work. And you could also set it up where you get the novation agreement signed. You find somebody else to do all the labor and all the repairs. And then you sell the house and then you split it 3 ways like that. And you can make money doing it that way too, which is pretty wild. Yeah. Anybody got any questions? Novation agreements? They're pretty fucking cool. Once we have like storm season again, we could become storm chasing wholesalers and we could pitch this kind of stuff.
We should pull a list in Mississippi. I have an uncle who I'll tell you who flips houses in Mississippi. So imagine we found sellers and we agreed to that and we put no money up front and I just sent my uncle over there to fix it up and we sold them. Like,
yeah, that'd be sick. Or wherever else your team in New York is.
No, not New York. Nobody's doing that in New York.
Well, Mississippi, the houses would be cheap, and so
exactly. And like, you know what I mean? Like, that's definitely a profit.
Yeah.
If we're gonna get them for dirt cheap, or if we're gonna if we're fixing them up for nothing.
Yeah, we don't have to pay anything to get the deal. Like, I mean, sometimes people want something, like always, but this is how you work those out. You can agree to basically, like, I'll fix the house up, and you'll have it in writing. Like, it'll be a whole contract, and then you'll sell it. And you get your money. So yeah, we just need to work on pitching it to people, and this can be an amazing way to make some money and get some other creative house deals going on, man. That'd be sick though. If we could pitch this and then your uncle would fix them up and then split the profits, you know, that's a good
Because
idea.
he can do it by himself. He can
Oh,
go fix
yeah.
house by himself. So it'd just be one person that has to get paid or that would be in the situation.
Yeah, cool. We could pull a list like within like an hour of him, you know what I mean? And just hit all of them and see if they'd be down. Might not get anything, but might get something. I mean, it seemed like Mississippi be an easy market to wholesale because it's kind of like going back in the past. And I know Paul made a bunch of money there, and I know Brian was killing it for a little while. So who knows?
Yeah, Terry and I were talking about Mississippi a bit yesterday. Just anywhere that's like smaller, generally lower income, rather than just smacking all these competitive places.
Yeah, Mississippi.
All really good. They all seem really good for creative finance too. Because I mean,
yeah,
all these bigger places, the markets are too saturated in every sense. So,
right.
We still have those Mississippi deals, right?
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Brian though. I should probably hit him up and check in on him. See what's up. Boom, boom, boom. I'm looking for an email. I don't see it.
What's going on, guys?
What's up, man?
What's up, man?
Nothing much. I got a new phone today and it doesn't want to cooperate. So.
It's all good. Let's get over to this last one. All right. We got lease options and Airbnb. And I'm gonna be the first to admit I don't understand everything about lease options. Other than they're kind of cool. So lease options, basically you don't really own the house, but you own the right to lease the house out, to rent the house out. And it can probably go all kinds of weird ways, where you can basically make people put down a down payment and rent it out. That's basically how you do Airbnbs though. It's like you don't own the house, but you get a lease option from somebody who does own the house. You can take care of it. You're responsible for it, and then you just rent it out or you set it up as an Airbnb. It's pretty easy pitch. Like if they don't want to sell, but they'd be willing to rent or they're looking for tenants, we could really start pitching, hey, well, what if we did like a lease option? You don't have to worry about the tenants and toilets. I'll make sure that you get paid every single month. We run a business, and then we'll just turn it into an Airbnb or we'll rent it out to somebody else. So this is like just another cool way to, when you're talking to sellers, get an option to make some money. And what like the holy grail, right, is to first you get a seller finance or a subject to deal, right? You get it. Let's say you give the seller $10,000 to get into, either a subject to or a seller finance. Well, then you set up a lease option and you give somebody in the town, you make an ad that says, hey, who wants to rent to own this property? Don't really care about credit, just need to have, a job and be willing to put down 15 grand, right? People will jump all over that. There's a lot of good, blue collar workers that have money, but don't have good credit for a house. And they'd love an opportunity to rent to own a house. So then basically you give the seller, 10 grand, and then you find somebody else and you get 15 grand and you make $5,000 profit. And then you cash flow that property every single month, and that's like the holy grail of some of these creative deals. Or, sorry, I'm out of breath. You turn it into, you get a seller finance and you turn it into an Airbnb, and then you basically can rent it out to other people, or you could give somebody else a lease option. They turn it into an Airbnb, like it just goes on and on and on. But it's just another cool thing that you can do with real estate. From what I understand, though, you don't own the house at all when you just do a lease option with a seller. You just have the right to lease it. You are responsible for it. And there's some interesting contracts, and I'll have to read them over before I like tell you guys exactly how it works. But it's just another cool way to basically make some money and rent out houses. But it is kind of cool to think about, like, what if when we're cold calling, if it's like people aren't going to sell, but they're looking to rent it out, we could be like, hey, well, would you do a lease option? You know what I mean? And pitch that to them, and then we'll agree on a price. Obviously, if you get the house for super cheap, on a lease option, then you can rent it out for more money and then cash flow every month. That's like a pretty ninja way to start stacking up some residual income and things like that. Any questions or comments on lease options?
No, I just think the cool thing is like basically you just getting somebody to put in a down payment. You'd have to, you just be the middleman collecting money. So that's why it's.
I know, wouldn't that be sick? We should pitch that
Yeah.
more often. I don't even think about that option because I talk to a lot of sellers and they're like, well, I'm looking to rent it out. I'd rather not sell it. And I could just flip it on its head and be like, well, would you give me a lease option and I'll take care of it and I'll make sure I pay you every month? I'll pay you, you just find out how much the rent is in the town, try and get it for as cheap as you humanly can from the seller. And then you do some marketing and you find a tenant to go in there. You could end up in some squirrely situations if you get shitty tenants, but just a cool idea. Stacks on stacks. All right. That was creative financing. Hope everybody liked it. Hope you guys appreciate it. If you guys want to work with Bears Real Estate, send me a message on Facebook or an email to jvbearsrealestate@gmail.com. All right. Peace. I'm just going to stop recording now, basically.